All right, so here we have our mathematical vocabulary. Just a quick review. Area is the measure of the space inside a two-dimensional shape. Area can be measured by counting the number of square units with a 2D shape. This is harder to do with the circle, which is why it has its own formula. The formula that we have is A equals pi times radius squared. Um, if you are a master of order of operations, which in this point 7th grade, I know you are, you know that you would first find the radius and then square that, which means whatever the radius is, you're going to multiply that number by itself. So if the radius was 5, you're going to do 5 times 5, not 5 times 2. Remember, when we have an exponent, that is an example of repeated multiplication. So we're going to take 5 or whatever the radius is and multiply it by itself, and then multiply that by 3.14. Okay, so you guys have already done this part, and I'm going to jump ahead to a different part in the lesson where we can begin like doing some practice examples. The first example that we have is, you guys ready? All right, the first example that we have is this one. We need to find the area of the circle below using 3.14 for pi. Right now, we see that we have an example of diameter. That means the distance from this edge of the circle all the way to the distance to this edge of the circle. The total distance is 18 inches, which means that we're going to have to divide this by 2 to find our radius. Remember this, when we are going through, when we're going through this, we have to pay attention to when we have diameter, we need to turn that into radius. If you don't have that, then you have the radius, and then like you already have what you need. This is an example where we need to kind of go into it to do some work. So I'm gonna come back to my board over here where we can do the work. So I'm gonna leave my formula right here. This is the formula that we're gonna be using today. And no, that is not the formula we're gonna be using today. This is the formula that we're gonna be using today. And we're gonna just plug in everything that we need. So we wanna find the area, and we wanna say that it is 3.14 because we're plugging in the value for pi, times our radius, which half of 18 is 9, so 9 squared. Order of operation says that we have to take care of the exponent first, so that's gonna be 9 times 9, which is 81. And then we can do 3.14 times 81. The answer to this, I'm just gonna do it really quickly on the board right here. 3.14 times 81. You can also throw this in your calculator. I can trust that you guys know how to do multiplication at this point, but it's always good to practice doing it. 8 times 4 is 32. Drop my 2, carry my 3. 8 times 1 is 8, plus 3 is 11. Drop my 1, carry my 1. 8 times 3 is 24, plus 1 is 25. Now that I have all of these lined up, I am going to add them down. 4, 3, 4, and then 25. Before I move on, I know that I have 2 numbers behind decimals, so there needs to be 2 numbers behind decimals here. What this answer tells me is that the area of this circle is 254.34 units squared. We are going to like double check this math by just throwing it inside of our calculator as just like a quick way to double check. So when we do that, here's what it's gonna look like. I'm gonna do 9 times 9, that's 81, great. And then we're gonna do 3.14 times 81, which gives me 254.34. Make sure that every time we do area, when we're talking about area, we are talking about units squared. So whatever that is, we will put units squared. Here it's inches. So when we put the work in there, like you see it right here, it's going to be 254.34 inches squared. Later on in the classwork, I am going to ask you guys to explain your steps, and here's an example of a high quality response. This is the kind of work that I'm looking for when I want you all to explain it. You don't have to show the work step by step, but I do want you to explain each and everything that you did, especially if you notice that you had diameter and not radius and what you did to find the radius. So what is the exact area of a circle with a radius of 2.2 meters? In order to do this, so this is one of the types of examples where we're talking about we need to find first what radius squared is, which means we have to take 2.2 and multiply it by itself. I'm gonna go back to the board over here so that we can see what happens when we take 2.2 and multiply it by itself. 2.2 squared is 2.2 times 2.2. We have to do the multiplication as we normally would. 4, 4, 4, 4, and then we add them together. Two numbers behind decimals, so we should have two numbers behind decimals. It's 4.84. So when we put this back into our equation, it would be area equals pi times 4.84. All right. Sometimes it's just going to ask you to leave it in terms of pi, and you don't have to multiply it by 3.14. Let's go back to the problem and just make sure that we see exactly what we should be doing. It wouldn't be 4.84 square meters. It wouldn't be 2.2 times pi. The reason why it wouldn't be 4.84 is because we didn't multiply it by times pi. So it wouldn't just be 4.84 as an area. It wouldn't be 2.2 times pi because we didn't square the radius like we were supposed to in this answer. And this one is 4.4 times pi, which is a really close answer, but this is like if you just thought you knew what to do, you just multiply 2.2 times 2.2 incorrectly, you would get 4.4. This is the only answer that you would get. So you would put 4.84 times pi, which is the same, and probably in some mathematicians' eyes, a better answer than putting 4.84 times 3.14. So that's the type of answer that you would put there. Example 3 says the distance across a circular ice skating rink is 34 feet. We want to know how many square units cover the pond, and instead of using pi, we're going to use 3.14 for pi. So here's what we're going to do for this type of answer. First, we're noticing that the distance across a circular ice skating rink is 34 feet. This is an example of diameter. The distance across a circle, that is the example that is describing diameter. So if the diameter is 34 feet, we need to divide 34 by 17. How many square units cover the pond? And it's saying use 3.14 for pi. Some questions is going to tell you to just solve using pi. Other questions, it'll tell you very specifically to use 3.14 for pi. You have to pay attention to what the question is asking you. In order to properly solve these word problems on your paper at home, you're going to annotate the key vocabulary that identifies the part of the circle. That's where it identifies that this is diameter. Then you're going to draw a diagram of the situation if you need to. I'm going to show an example of like what I mean by drawing a diagram. You definitely have to do this for each of your examples. I'm actually going to take a pause from this really quickly and just model this step so you guys know exactly what I'm looking for you all to do when you show your work on a paper. All right, so what they're saying is the distance across this circle from end to end is going to be and this is 34 feet, which means that in order to find the area, which we know is pi times radius squared, we first have to turn pi into 3.14, and then 17 squared. When we do that, we'll be able to find our answer. Let me make sure. I'm going to go back and so we need to solve for the unknown quantity in an organized way. We've already set up our information so that it's organized, and then we have to ensure that we're expressing our answer correctly by making sure that it's approximate versus exact based on what the problem asks. This one asks us to be approximate by using 3.14, and then we have to square the units when we're solving for area. So what that means is that I'm going to go back to the work on the board so that your paper looks like this. I'm going to write the formula first, and then I'm going to plug in all the information that I know. area equals 3.14 times, not 34, but 17 squared. And then I have to find out what 17 squared is. So 17 times 17. Hey, Siri. Oh! Oh, man, I'm not editing that out either. Okay. Hey, Siri, what's 17 times 17?
17 times 17 is 289.
So I'm going to do 3.14 times 289. And then to find the area, I'm going to multiply those two together. Hey, Siri, what is 3.14 times 289?
3.14 times 289 is
907.46. And I'm going to go back into this and model what the kind of answer is that I'm looking for. The first thing I want you to say is, I noticed that the question was describing the diameter of the circle. So I divided 34 by 2 to get 17 as my radius. See, even your math teacher will like make that mistake. They would go and make sure that you're like using the right vocabulary. After I found the radius, I multiplied 17 times 17 to find what the radius squared is. The radius squared is 289, and I multiplied that by 3.14 because the question asked me to use 3.14 instead of pi. The final answer is the area of the skating rink is 907.46 feet squared. Or you could say 47 or 907.46 square feet. That's what I'm looking for. That is the kind of answer that you should be giving. Now, this is on to your level 1 problems, in which I may or may not show you the answers to. But when I review your answers, I'll be able to go back and kind of give you guys feedback to make sure that you're doing things right. The one thing I'm noticing right here for this first question is that it gives you diameter and not radius. So you know that you have to divide 31.4 times divided by 2 to find the radius and then plug it into your equation. This one gives you a radius. This one gives you the diameter. So again, paying attention and making sure that you're plugging it in, and then making sure that you're using full sentences to explain those steps. I am looking forward to seeing you guys' answers and your responses to this. Can't wait to see what it is. Make sure that you're answering every single question in Google Forms all the way to the exit ticket, and you're going into Khan and like doing those practice questions on there. I'm gonna be grading everything. Make sure that you're applying yourself as much as possible. All right? Peace. Sorry for the noise that y'all can hear these two.